She was a youngish woman to have breast cancer, still before the menopause at the time when she got it, and she'd obviously had it some time and concealed it, as indeed a lot of women used to do in those days. There was no way of telling whether the tumour might have spread at the time of the mastectomy operation, which of course sadly in her case it had.
The following year, despite still being seriously ill, Kathleen travelled to Vienna with her assistant, Bernie Hammond, to record Mahler's Das Lied von der Erde with Bruno Walter. By now, she had cancelled numerous engagements both at home and abroad, and was receiving almost continuous radiation treatment. She was in considerable pain much of the time, and it's impossible to listen to the recording they made during those extraordinary, heartbreaking days without taking the personal circumstances of the artists into account. Bruno Walter, the composer's friend, and Kathleen, who perhaps knew that it was her own farewell, that she might only see the lovely earth grow green again once more. Like Mahler, she rose to the challenge of a death sentence by reaching for perfection in her art.
On the last afternoon when they'd finished the final recording, we were all sitting in a small room to hear the final tape. When it was finished, I always feel that time completely stood still, just for a few seconds. There was that absolute stillness. And nobody said anything, and then Kath quietly walked over to Bruno Walter, and she looked at him and she said, "Was I all right, love?" And the look on Bruno Walter's face was just so incredibly beautiful, really. He had no words either. He just didn't have words to say to her.
I do very well remember the last time I heard her in Lied von der Erde, in November 1952 at the Festival Hall. And one then knew that she was very ill. And I remember she was worried about a draft or something, and she threw a shawl around her. And you then, I think, felt the tragedy and timelessness of Lied von der Erde even more than one had in her earlier performances.
I remember that performance, and I remember how it was Cripps, wasn't it? Joseph Cripps was the conductor. And he turned very deliberately to her and in a high German fashion clicked his heels and bowed, and I felt that was a special salute.
After the thrill of being awarded the CBE in the new Queen's first honours list, there remained one final professional mountain to climb, Orfeo at Covent Garden in February 1953, conducted by Sir John Barbarolli. Since their concert performances of Orfeo, Sir John had wanted to stage the opera. The previous summer, he and Kathleen had translated the Italian libretto.
I still have the copy because I think the translation was a little inept. So they altered that a good deal of laughter, I think, sometimes. But I think she did enjoy Orpheus, despite the fact that she was so ill at the time. Maybe she knew that it was the last time, I don't know.
In the morning, when she got up, it was agony for her to move. And we had to get down a spiral staircase and out across the snow and into a taxi, and it required a tremendous amount from her to do this. But when we got to Covent Garden, the most fantastic thing used to happen, because somehow or other the pain seemed to go, and as soon as she got onto the stage she was walking around normally, and I used to feel every time I saw this that I was watching a miracle.
I remember coming in here, there was great excitement because Kathleen was performing and she came in for rehearsals. And I'd heard about her, you know, and so had you. And this very tall woman arrived in, you remember?
She was very tall.
And she had this most beautiful face and the wonderful bone structure. And she had gorgeous eyes, and she had very sallow skin. And we were not aware that she was so ill. I mean, this woman came in and she was so healthy and full of joys of life, and so delighted to meet us.
As we were only 3 singers, when you hear a voice like that, it gives you the impetus to sing better. I don't think I sang so well as I did when I was singing with her in her performance.
But the first night we were so enraptured with her voice. Adele and I were beside her, and spontaneously, the two of us, we started to applaud. Do you remember?
Well, she was pushed her forward and applauded.
We were just overwhelmed with her voice.
On the opening night, Kathleen sent a gift of cufflinks to Sir John with a note.
For my beloved maestro, with my devoted love, and oh, so many thanks for making an Orpheus dream come true.
To hear her singing Kefaro, it was what was life. I mean, this woman knowing that she was dying. And in her eyes, she didn't cry, but there were tears. She had beautiful eyes.
What is life to me without thee? What is left if thou art dead?
The second performance, something went wrong with the bones of her leg.
The bone in her leg actually fractured, but there were very few people in the audience that knew this had happened. She just stood in one position, and somehow or other, by some sort of telepathy, I think she made everyone realize that she couldn't move and that they would have to come to her, which is what they instinctively did.
Now, what she said to me on stage, she said, I can't bear the pain. So I put my hand out like that. I said, you lean on it. And then we walked off to the side of the stage, and they called an ambulance, but she wanted to go back on stage. And I said, all right, so we walked back on and we just did the finale.
What had happened was that she'd had secondary breast cancer, which the cells had gone into her bones, and that's a thing that happens even nowadays. And the cells weaken the bone, and particularly if the bone is a weight-bearing bone, like the hip bone, if it gets very weak, it can crack and fracture. And that's what happened. Must have been excruciatingly painful. And to have just continued and managed to have finished and got off the stage, it's just... that's real grit, that is.
I couldn't walk the next day and had to be carried down our stairs at great risk to my life by 2 perspiring, hefty ambulance men. And here I am, furious at letting Covent Garden down, furious at missing my investiture, but counting my blessings in that I am here in wonderful hands. Much love to all my buddies. Kath.
In June, Kathleen was awarded one of the highest musical honours, the Royal Philharmonic Society's Gold Medal. A month later, she underwent a further operation in which she pinned all her hopes and prayers. On the 8th of October 1953, Kathleen Ferrier died peacefully in her sleep.
In 1953, when I first came to London as a student, I remember coming up out of the underground station at Oxford Circus and being confronted by the newspaper adverts that this famous singer had died, and I knew exactly who it was. And I felt very sad because I knew I wasn't going to have the opportunity ever to get to know her. And it was a sort of cut-off period. Something was very definitely over. And I think all my generation felt that.